Warning! The following video contains graphic violence, nudity, sexuality, and coarse language. Viewer discretion is strongly advised.
You're just too white and nerdy. Think I'm just too white and nerdy. Can't you see I'm white and nerdy? Look at me, I'm white and nerdy. I wanna roll with the gangsters, but so far they all think I'm too white and nerdy. Think I'm just too white and nerdy.
Greetings, good people of the internet. I am Anime Al. Al is my name, and anime is my game. James Bond. Just about everybody knows who he is. For over 50 years, 007 has had one of the biggest film franchises of all time. So it should come as no surprise that James Bond has been very influential to spy fiction. And of all the franchises out there that have taken influences from 007, I believe the most heavily influenced is Golgo 13. For those of you who don't know, Golgo 13 is a manga series that started in 1969 and is still ongoing as of 2015, making it the longest still-running manga series of all time in Japan. Wow, and I thought Detective Conan had been going on for a while. The manga follows a professional assassin codenamed Golgo 13, who travels around the world taking out various targets, from drug lords to politicians, charging $1 million for every hit. His codename is a reference to the death of Jesus, Golgo being short for Golgotha, the place where Jesus was crucified, and 13 for the number of people that attended the Last Supper. So, in celebration of the 24th James Bond film Spectre, I decided to take a look at the Golgo 13 franchise. But which part? As there have been several different adaptations of this long-running manga. After doing some research, I settled on Golgo 13 Queen Bee, a 1998 OVA that is not actually based on any pre-existing Golgo 13 story. Our OVA begins with a meeting between presidential candidate Robert Harding, his running mate Thomas, and their campaign manager. While Robert is leading in the polls by 80%, Thomas is not happy with the campaign manager.
I'm working on the assumption you picked her, am I right?
It took me weeks to find that little cutie. Isn't she perfect?
White, blonde, blue-eyed, too perfect.
Huh?
Why didn't you find someone ethnic, black, Puerto Rican, anything but this Stepford kid? We already have the white suburban vote all sewn up. As you know, if you bother to read the polling data, we're paying you and your flunkies to produce for us. I was told you were the best campaign manager in the business.
Right. A black kid next time.
You got that? Ethnic diversity! Give us freaking ethnic diversity, or your head will be on a silver platter! Wow. We then cut to a redheaded lady, having exercise. Yeah, exercise. We then get introduced to our main protagonist, Golgo 13. Apparently, the redheaded lady is Queen Bee, and she's been sending threatening letters to Robert Hardy. His running mate Thomas has hired Golgo 13 to eliminate her, paying him $1 million in advance. Golgo 13 is given the additional information he needs for the assignment on a CD drive. After he uses it, however, the CD drive explodes. Crikey! Thomas said it wouldn't be usable after one use, but he never said it'd explode. What would have happened if the explosion had killed Golgo 13? They would have spent $1 million on Assassin. They just blew up! We then get an opening title sequence similar to that of the James Bond franchise, with the song Turquoise Blue. Actually, this is kind of catchy.
Hey lady, I wonder where it is you hide. Now lady, must you be on the run tonight, dodging strangers on the street and undying memories.
After the opening title sequence, we see Queen Bee and her men drive up to the top of a garage to sell some cocaine. However, the buyers are not who they think they are. However, the FBI weren't expecting the firepower that Queen Bee and her men would have. Ooh! Clean up on aisle 3! Ooh. Unfortunately for Queen Bee, one of the FBI agents managed to call in backup, so one of Queen Bee's men volunteers to do a kamikaze run so that Queen Bee and the rest of her men can make a getaway. Well, you have to admit, she does command a lot of loyalty from her men. A lot. We then cut to Queen Bee swimming in a swimming pool and being admired by a crime boss by the name of Don Racconi. Apparently, Queen Bee is selling cocaine, and Don Racconi is giving her tools, resources, men, and intel to sell that cocaine in exchange for, how do I put this delicately? Services in the bedroom. We then cut to Don Racconi and Queen Bee in the middle of, oh, well, you probably figured out what. And then we see that Don Racconi had summoned his boys to bring them the guy who sold out Queen Bee and his men. And she just executes him, completely naked.
You have any kids?
Yeah, I got a boy, almost 4, and a new baby girl.
Do you love them?
Yes, of course I do.
You don't think Antonio loved his?
And after she kills him, they resume it. Yeah, I don't really know what to say to that. We then cut to a bar in which Golgo 13 is watching a press conference. Apparently, Robert Hardy is running on a platform of anti-drugs and is one of the main reasons why he's gaining so many supporters. To which the bartender asks which side is he on, Republican or Democrat? And then Golgo 13 gives what is probably the best line in this entire film.
So which one are you, my friend? A Republican or a Democrat?
A bourbon man.
Okay, I'll give you that. That was a good one. We then see a man enter the bar, and it turns out that this man is Golgo 13's informant. The two of them head to the back of the bar to have a little chat. Apparently, Queen Bee, whose real name is Sonia, is the second in command of a freedom fighter force who operates down in the Congos. Apparently, they process and sell cocaine to fund their war efforts. She is here in North America to sell cocaine along with Don Racconi, who gets a cut of the profits in exchange for helping distribute the cocaine. The informant points out that the reason why Queen Bee is probably trying to kill Robert Hardy is because of the fact that he is strongly against drugs, which would mean bad news for both the Congo rebels and for Don Racconi's drug ring. Therefore, it would benefit both of them if he were to be eliminated. However, Golgo 13 doesn't think it's that simple. And then who should walk into the bar but none other than Queen Bee herself.
At 16, she was a grunt in the Caminero Liberation Army. At 22, she had her own command and the name Queen Bee. Couldn't find any record of her before that. Just like she materialized like a freaking ghost.
Convenient!
Golgo 13 then asks his informant if he could find out anything about Queen Bee before she joined the Congo rebels. The informant then leaves the bar, and before Golgo 13 can follow suit, Queen Bee asks him if he wants to go with her to a motel. Oh, are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? I swear to God, we have not even hit the 20-minute mark of this OVA, and there have been not one, not two, but 3 sex scenes. What the heck? Now, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be any sex in this or any other movie. What I'm saying is there needs to be context here. However, the sex scenes in this OVA just feel like they're there for obvious reasons and don't move the story for the most part. They are beyond gratuitous. And here's the weird thing. I actually did some research. By and large, for every hour of a porno movie, apparently it's only like 5 minutes of sex scenes. This OVA is about 56 minutes long, including credits. It has about 10 minutes worth of sex scenes. Yep, this OVA actually has more sex in it than a porno. What the heck? And in my opinion, they're not even that good. They just feel so weird and unnatural. I just felt uncomfortable during them. But that's just my opinion. But it turns out that there is a reason why Golgo 13 got invited to the motel with Queen Bee. Apparently, and you're not going to believe this, she wants to hire Golgo 13 to kill the presidential candidate.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
However, Golgo 13 turns down her offer, saying, "I only take one job at a time." Nice, I like a man who's focused. So while Golgo 13 steps out to take a shower, Queen Bee decides to take a look at his briefcase, which, as you probably guess, has pictures and files of her. And Golgo 13 doesn't take too kindly to people who invade his privacy.
Raise your hands. Now turn around.
Well, it looks like I've been fucked twice, doesn't it?
Oh, stop it. I can't stand it. It's too painful.
Before Golgo 13 can kill her right then and there, she reveals that several of her men have been watching them this whole time and have guns pointed at them.
There's one behind the mirror, another one in the heater vent. But a pro like you would have figured that out. And then there's the other guests in this dump. Using a .44 Magnum makes a whole lot of noise. This place will be crawling with people before you can grab your briefcase and get out the door. To say nothing of getting your clothes back on.
So Queen Bee gets away. Meanwhile, we cut to Robert Hardy. Thomas is congratulating Robert Hardy on a well-done speech. However, Hardy is not particularly happy, as he claims that Thomas is always the one who writes the speeches and is always telling him what to do. We then find out that Robert Hardy has a cocaine addiction, and it's the reason why he's so strongly opposed against drugs. The next day, we see Thomas is in a limousine along with a general under his payroll, a one General Gordon. Thomas apparently is worried now that Queen Bee knows that they hired Golgo 13 to come after her. While Golgo 13 has a reputation for never leaving a job unfinished, he's worried Golgo 13 might not be enough to finish her off. So he asks the general to get a specialist, just in case Golgo 13 can't get rid of her. Before I continue with the story, I think I should say a bit about our main protagonist, Golgo 13. This may be the most boring protagonist I have ever seen in an anime. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert on story or character development, but in my opinion, one of the basic fundamentals of story and character development is you should have a protagonist that's likable or even remotely human. That doesn't describe Golgo 13 in the slightest. He has no personality. He never expresses an emotion. You could replace him with a robot armed with a machine gun, and it wouldn't make a difference to the story whatsoever, except for the sex scenes. I just don't understand how a franchise could have been going on for so long with such a bland and boring protagonist. Maybe he has more to him in the manga, but in this OVA, there is literally nothing to this character. I have never, ever Cena protagonists have so little going for them. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but Punisher has more going for him. Back to the story, we see that Golgo 13 has found Queen Bee's base of operations here.
On the surface, it's just a freighter from the Republic Comanero. But instead of coffee beans, there's cocaine on board, as well as a squad of commandos.
Queen Bee is upset that her boss down in Condenero has called her back, even though she has yet to assassinate the president. And while her men try to calm her down, Golgo 13 tries to kill her with a crossbow. However, one of her men gets in the way at the last second. And now I think I should talk about the action scenes. They're not very good. Not that bad, but not good either. The first big problem with the action scenes is speed lines. For some reason, despite being just under an hour long, Golgo 13 Queen Bee has quite a few speed lines. Why? I'm not sure. Maybe it was a stylistic choice at the time, but it just makes it look cheap. Instead of having actual movement, having lines right across the screen. The second big problem is lighting. For some reason or another, the people who made Golgo 13 Queen Bee decided to have whole portions of the screen blocked out. Now, I can understand that this may have been a stylistic choice as they were going for a bit of a noir style here with spies and stuff, but all it does is make it difficult to see what's going on half the time. I can't get invested in a scene if I don't even know what's happening. And the final crippling blow to the action scenes in this film are Golgo 13 himself. The man is a god. Nothing, and I mean nothing, kills him. This is a huge problem. Now I know what some of you are going to say. Oh, Al, it's an action movie. We all know the action hero is gonna get out of it unscathed. The difference between a good action movie and a bad one is that a good one gets you to suspend your disbelief, to get you to believe that just maybe the hero won't come out of this situation alive. Golgo 13 Queen Bee doesn't even attempt to do this, because Golgo 13 is the indestructible super assassin. You could throw an entire Marine unit against this guy, and he still won't die. He might not even get hurt. Even James Bond usually gets injured from time to time. But no. They even point it out in one scene.
Everybody fan out, but watch each other's back. It's just one man out there, but this guy is more than capable of wiping out this whole command.
Do I even have to say anything? Queen Bee yourself just admitted how nearly invincible Golgo 13 is. It's bad when the OVA is pointing out plot holes for me. So after killing some of her men, Queen Bee manages to finally injure Golgo 13. So yeah, just because Golgo 13 was injured in this scene, do not think for 1 second that he has become any less indestructible. He got 3 to 4 bullets right in the chest, and he doesn't even show any sign of pain. Now I know what some of you are going to say. Well, he's been highly trained. Of course he wouldn't show it. He's gotta show something, anything! Come on, man, you've just been shot several times in the chest! You at least have a tiny little flinch. Can you do that for me? Oh. So Golgo 13 manages to escape from the frigate and breaks into a marine cafe. He calls his informant to get him help. And his informant brings with him an underground doctor. However, Golgo 13 is not quick to trust the guy.
Calm down, Duke. The good doctor here's an old friend of mine. He's very discreet. Look, if he blabs, you've got my permission to shoot me and empty my savings account.
No, my friend. When Queen Bee is dead, and her freedom fighters are ashes, then you have my permission to die. We then cut to General Gordon, who has recruited a, shall we say, disturbed man. You see, the man you see before you with the white hair and the eye patch is one Lieutenant Betting, who was dishonorably discharged after he committed cannibalism to some of the villagers that he was ordered to kill. And now Gordon has got Lieutenant Betting to go after Queen Bee. And let's just say he is more than happy to go after her.
People don't know. Every day it was kill or be killed.
Exactly. You did what you had to do, and you did it well. That's why I hired the best lawyer for your court-martial. You remember the one who got you off? Because I knew someday I'd been needing a man with your special skills.
General, we're going to war again?
My gosh, this guy's over the top. Why couldn't he have been in the movie sooner? So, a few hours after Golgo 13 has had his bullets removed, his informant comes back with information on Robert Harding. Apparently, Robert Harding was once an up-and-coming lawyer who had an illegitimate child with a woman named Vanessa. Now, Robert's parents were not, shall we say, approving of Robert's relationship with Vanessa the cocktail waitress.
Eventually, Robert learned to toe the line. He ran for Congress and won. By then, the potentially embarrassing mother and love child had quietly vanished. And guess what, Duke? Nobody's seen hide or hair of them since. It's almost like they never existed. Joanna was 11 years old. If she's alive, she'd be the same age as her mother Vanessa was then, 29. A couple of nights ago, if you remember, a girl who could have been this Vanessa's double pumped a pound of lead into your left side.
Subtle. We then cut to, oh, for the love of Pete, is this woman allergic to her clothing? Now that I think about it, Queen Bee has actually been in this movie more than Golgo 13 himself has. Why isn't she the main character of this movie? She has more of a personality than he ever does in it. Seriously, this movie should have been retitled Queen Bee, guest starring Golgo 13. It is astounding how much our villain has more depth than our hero. So, while Queen Bee's doing the you-know-what, we see a flashback of her tragic past. Apparently, what didn't supposedly happen was that Robert Hardy's parents paid off Vanessa to take the kid and disappear. No, what happened was far more dark. Thomas and 3 men came, killed Vanessa, and then took away Julia. But not before Thomas raped her and then sold her into the underground sex trade. I'm sorry, when did this action movie become rapey? I mean, if I knew something like this was in this movie, I don't think I would have tried to done a parody review of it. Holy Christ, I mean, how the heck am I gonna bounce back from that? So now we're at the jungle, and all the players are here. Queen Bee has gone back to her freedom fighters, Golgo 13 is in the jungle, and Betting is leading a bunch of troops to the village. But here's the thing. When Golgo 13 lands in the jungle, he almost immediately swoops in and kills several of Betting's men. Why does he do this? Your guess is as good as mine, as he was only paid to take out Queen Bee. I'm not even sure if he knew what these guys were doing in the jungle. Maybe he's just like, oh, those guys look up like they're up to no good. Oh well.
Knife goes in, guts come out. Knife goes in, guts come out.
What the hell is going on?
Well, while Golgo 13 is bumping off soldiers willy-nilly in the jungle, Queen Bee is at a meeting with the leader of the freedom fighters. Apparently, he's been given an offer. $500 million if he delivers Queen Bee to a certain interested party. Now, while this interested party is not specifically stated, it is heavily implied that it is the vice president candidate, Thomas. And here's the weird part. Queen Bee is actually willing to give herself up so the freedom fighters can get the money.
If the terms are agreeable, I'm to post a message on the internet saying the pumpkin pie's gone bad.
With that much money, you could finally afford those Sidewinder missiles on the black market.
You can get that absurd notion right out of your head. Sonia, I would never hand you over, no matter how much blood money that swine offered us.
And from listening to them talk, you can tell that she has a real respect and admiration for the leader. It's almost as if he's become her father figure. And that is the reason why I am so baffled as to Queen Bee not being the main protagonist of the story. She actually has a character. She's loyal to the freedom fighters. She cares deeply about her men, to the point that she wanted to personally execute the guy who ratted her people out and caused one of her men to be killed. She actually has some personality and depth to her. So why aren't you the main character?
You restored my humanity. I owe you everything.
All this fuss about a pumpkin pie, I've never even tasted it, have you?
No, sir.
Perhaps I should have the old woman bake us such a pie tonight.
All right.
Aw, such a happy little moment. I sure hope some soldiers aren't marching through the jungle on their way right here to kill all of you. Oh, wait, yeah. We also finally learned the reason why Queen Bee is called, well, Queen Bee. You see, due to her sleeping around with several of her men, she has gotten pregnant several times and has a whole bunch of children. Yeah, here's the thing. If she had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least 8 kids, I highly doubt she'd have a body still like that. Personally, I thought she was called Queen Bee up until this point because she commanded such an utter loyalty from her soldiers. But apparently I was wrong. So helicopters come in with rockets and thermal imaging to take down soldiers and villagers alike, completely indiscriminately killing people everywhere. Oh boy, I'm having so much fun watching this goofy action movie inspired by James Bond. Yay. After the helicopters take out several people, Betting leads his troops in personally to finish Queen Bee off himself. Meanwhile, Golgo 13 himself is also in the battlefield trying to take out Queen Bee. My gosh, this is just so unpleasant. Recognizing him as the man who killed his men earlier, Lieutenant Betting, instead of trying to kill Queen Bee, instead goes after Golgo 13. But, unfortunately for him, he's no match for the super assassin. This fight is meant to be the ultimate fight. It is the last fight in the entire OVA. And it's just awful. They're fighting in a jungle with dark lighting, with recut and reused animation. It is just awful. There is no dramatic tension whatsoever. The fight goes exactly the way you thought it would. So after Golgo 13 kills Lieutenant Betting, all too easily I may add for the supposedly final fight of the film, he goes after Queen Bee again. Unfortunately, she's not doing too well, seeing as one of her children got killed in the attack, and then she personally buries him herself. This is not fun to watch. It's way too dark to be a good action movie, and it's too goofy to be taken as a serious drama. It's as if they tried to take the goofier side of Bond and put it into a darker story, but it really is not working at all. This is just so freaking depressing. So after Queen Bee is finished burying her son, she then catches up with Golgo 13 and almost kills him. But she puts her gun down and... take a guess. Seriously, take a guess what she does. Does she A. forgive everything he did, B. thank him for killing Bedding and several of his men, or C. sleep with him? If you said C, congratulations! Boy, let me tell you, this may be the cheesiest scene in the entire OVA, and there are a lot of cheesy scenes here.
Dying holds no appeal for me. Once I was like you. I didn't care if I lived or not, until one day I found a cause that was worth living for.
To have so much hunger for life is good.
Together, you and I will create a new life. Let the seed be planted in the ashes of war.
What the hell was that?
Oh, thank you, Golgo 13 Queen Bee. After all that slaughter, I needed that. We then cut back to presidential candidate Robert Harding, who stops his limousine to say hello to a child, who calls herself Julia. Apparently, Queen Bee is trying to drive her father insane with guilt for sending Thomas after her and her mother. But what she doesn't realize is that Robert Harding had no idea whatsoever what happened to her and her mother. Apparently, Thomas gave him some cockamamie story that he just paid them off, not realizing the truth of what really happened.
Oh, come now, as if you would have preferred the truth. Would you have wanted me to tell you what really happened to the both of them? Of course not. That way you could pretend you didn't know.
Oh my gosh, a politician lied? Stop the presses! So Thomas comes clean and tells Robert exactly what happened all those years ago. And it devastates Robert. It's very clear that he cared about Vanessa and his daughter. And then the horrible truth dawns on him. He's been nothing more than Thomas's puppet, a little marionette, someone who Thomas puts words into his mouth and speaks for him. So he decides that the next day he's going to do something about it.
Is that really me? Was I ever that happy? Oh, my darling. My little girl. Oh, dear God. Forgive me for what I've done.
So at Robert's next speech, he holds his running mate Thomas at gunpoint and tells all of his loyal devotees what his running mate really is.
I have chosen this stadium as the place of execution for my longtime friend and running mate. And his executioner will be me, your candidate for president. This man made me everything that I am today, despicable, loathsome, and unworthy of your trust. He is corruption and evil personified, and I am no more than his puppet.
However, unable to live with the guilt of what he did, Robert sees no other way out. Damn. And Queen Bee, who's waiting in the wings to shoot down her own father, breaks down and cries, realizing that her father had absolutely nothing to do with what happened to her and her mother. And in the one time we actually get to see Golgo 13 have any humanity, he has Queen Bee right in his sights, and he decides to let her grieve, not pulling the trigger. Now you may be thinking that Thomas will get arrested by the police. However, he comes up with this whole big cockamamie story that Robert didn't know what he was saying because he was under a lot of stress and pressure due to his drug addiction and having an illegitimate daughter that was into drug smuggling.
The strains of a presidential campaign are enormous, and I believe they ultimately proved too much for him to handle. As it turns out, there were other pressures on him as well. We now know that Robert Hardy had an illegitimate daughter, and that this girl is involved in drug smuggling. I think he snapped under the weight of concealing this for so long. He became unhinged.
And I thought this sandwich was full of bologna.
We then cut to later, where Queen Bee is attending her father's funeral. However, Golgo 13 is lying in wait for her. But it turns out that she was fully aware that Golgo 13 was going to be there, and she lets him kill her. Remember earlier when I said that Golgo 13 never takes more than one job? Well, it turns out that Queen Bee wanted Golgo 13 to kill her so that he could take out the targets that she wants him to take out. She admits that she already put $3 million into a Swiss bank account and begs him to do it. And just as she dies, Golgo 13 says,
"It's a deal. I'll take the job."
The OVA then ends with Golgo 13 sniping and killing Don Riccone, General Gordon, and Thomas. So that was Golgo 13 Queen Bee. It had so much potential, and it squandered it all. I get why a lot of people love this OVA. Believe me, I wanted to, but it just doesn't work for me. The action scenes are subpar, the animation is limited and repetitive. Golgo 13 has got the personality of a brick. The dialogue is beyond cheesy and cliched. I mean, there's just not one aspect of this OVA that really worked. Oh sure, there were some bits and pieces here and there, but by and large, the whole thing just doesn't come together as a good and complete whole. There were some good twists with the stories here and there, but because of the shallow characterization, you just can't get invested fully in this. The earlier parts are goofy and over the top, and the later parts are just bleak and depressing. And that's a real shame because it's very clear that the people who made this really did put some thought and care into it. They just didn't have enough experience to put it all together well. One of the more frustrating things about seeing something bad is seeing how it could have been so much more. And that is Golgo 13 Queen Bee to a T. I give Golgo 13 1.5 stars out of 5. I considered giving it 2 out of 5 until I realized that Golgo 13 Queen Bee didn't truly excel at anything. It didn't truly fail at most things, but didn't truly succeed either. Golgo 13 Queen Bee is available from Discotek Media. Not that I would exactly recommend you getting it. For similar recommendations, I would recommend several of the James Bond movies, in particular GoldenEye and Casino Royale, which are available from MGM Studios. In terms of anime, I think I would recommend Darker Than Black, even though that has more similarities to X-Men than James Bond. That is available from Funimation. And while I haven't seen any of this series, I've been told that Licensed by Royalty has a lot more going for it than this OVA. However, I have yet to see any of Licensed by Royalty, and it is out of print, So I don't even know why I'm bringing it up. So until next time, my dear viewers, I'm Anime Al. Al is my name, and anime is my game.